You don't want the first $100,000 because you're greedy. You want it because you're tired. Tired of checking your balance before you sleep. Tired of pretending you're fine when one unexpected expense could knock the wind out of you. Tired of carrying responsibility in your chest like a quiet ache that never leaves. If you care too much, money has never been about luxury. It's been about relief. About finally feeling like you can exhale without something bad happening the moment you do. The first $100,000 is different from every number that comes after it, not because it makes you rich, but because it changes how your mind works. Before it, every decision feels heavy. Every purchase feels like a risk assessment. Your brain, wired for survival, treats money like a scarce resource that must be guarded at all costs. Neuroscience tells us that when resources feel limited, the brain narrows its focus. You don't think long-term, you don't feel creative, you just react. That's why saving feels so slow at first. You're fighting biology, not laziness. People who care too much feel this more intensely than anyone else. You don't just want to be okay for yourself. You want to be okay for your parents, your partner, your future kids, even the version of you that hasn't arrived yet. That emotional weight makes every dollar emotional. When you save, you're not just saving money, you're saving safety, dignity, and peace. And paradoxically, that pressure can make progress feel harder, because the fear of messing up keeps you frozen. Here's the hidden truth. No one tells you. The first $100,000 isn't built by discipline alone, it's built by identity. Behavioral psychology shows that humans don't change because of information. They change because of until you see yourself as someone who protects their future at all costs. Saving will always feel like deprivation. Once that identity clicks, saving stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling like self-respect. That's why speed matters here. Not reckless speed, but focused speed. When you stretch the first $100,000 over too many years, your brain never leaves survival mode. You're constantly starting and stopping, motivated and discouraged, hopeful and ashamed. Momentum is psychological. When progress is visible, dopamine kicks in. Your brain starts associating saving with reward instead of loss. This is how caring too much transforms from anxiety into fuel. But let's talk about the darker side, because it's real. People who care too much often try to save by punishing themselves. They cut joy first. They isolate. They turn life into a waiting room where happiness is postponed until some future number. This is where saving fast becomes unhealthy. When money becomes the only source of self-worth, every setback feels personal. Every delay feels like failure. And instead of freedom, you build a golden cage made of guilt and pressure. The healthiest way to reach your first $100,000 quickly is to understand what it actually represents. It's not the end goal. It's proof. Proof that you can change your trajectory. Proof that your past doesn't get to decide your future. Proof that you are capable of building stability in a world that constantly tries to destabilize you. Once your brain registers that proof, everything accelerates. Opportunities feel less scary. Decisions feel less desperate. You stop playing defense and start playing offense. There's a moment quiet, almost invisible when this shift begins. You notice that saving no longer feels like something you're forcing. It becomes automatic. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, does this align with who I'm becoming? That question is powerful. It moves you out of short-term emotion and into long-term identity. And that's when the pace changes. Socially, this journey can feel lonely. You may outgrow conversations centered around complaining, comparison, and impulse. Not because you think you're better, but because your nervous system is craving stability, not stimulation. People who care too much often feel guilty about this distance. But growth always creates space. And space isn't abandonment, it's alignment. What happens after the first $100,000 is almost unfair. Money starts behaving differently. Returns become noticeable. Mistakes don't wipe you out. The constant fear of starting over fades. Psychologically, your brain exits scarcity mode and enters planning mode. This is why people say the second $100,000 comes faster. It's not just compound interest, it's compound confidence. But don't miss the deeper lesson here. The first $100,000 doesn't change your life because of what it buys. It changes your life because of who you become while earning it. You learn patience. You learn boundaries. You learn that caring deeply doesn't mean exhausting yourself. It means choosing wisely. You learn that urgency can coexist with compassion, that ambition doesn't have to be loud, and that progress doesn't require perfection. If you're in the early stages right now, feeling behind, overwhelmed, or frustrated, I want you to hear this clearly. Nothing is wrong with you. The system is loud. The pressure is real. And your care is not a weakness, it's raw material. Once you learn to direct it instead of letting it consume you, it becomes your greatest advantage. Saving your first $100,000 fast isn't about grinding harder. It's about thinking cleaner, fewer emotional decisions, fewer leaks of energy, fewer attempts to prove something to people who don't live your life. It's about building a quiet foundation so strong that panic has nowhere to stand, and when you finally cross that number, don't rush past it. Sit with it. Feel the weight lift, even slightly. Acknowledge the version of you that worried, sacrificed, and kept going anyway. That version deserves respect, not criticism. So here's the question I'll leave you with, softly, honestly. If you stopped seeing money as a test you're constantly failing and started seeing it as a tool you're learning to use, how differently would you treat yourself starting today? And what would happen if you decided that your peace is worth saving for starting now?